Everyone says they want success. They post about it, dream about it, talk circles around it. But what they don't talk about, what they're never taught, is this: success is not fair. It never was. It never will be. It's not distributed equally. It's not awarded based on who needs it most. It's earned in silence. That's the part no one wants to hear. That's the part schools don't teach, parents don't explain, and motivational posters never mention. See, the world has convinced you that success is supposed to be visible, exciting, maybe even glamorous. But the real thing, the real version, it's built when no one's clapping. It's built in those hours where there's no feedback, no validation, no one watching to applaud your effort. It's built in silence, with zero proof you're getting anywhere, and that's where 99% of people fall off. Not because they weren't capable, but because they couldn't stand the quiet. Most people don't fail because of lack of talent. They fail because they were addicted to being seen. They needed the likes, the comments, the recognition. They couldn't stomach the truth that greatness is created in the shadows, long before it ever shines. You look at the icons of history, Carnegie, Edison, Ford, and you imagine the glory. But if you study their lives, what you find isn't glamour. It's loneliness, rejection, obsession, years of invisible effort before a single dollar was earned or a single hand was shaken. Think about this: Henry Ford went broke 5 times before he succeeded. 5 times. He wasn't on Instagram romanticizing the struggle. He was quietly bleeding for his vision while the world laughed at him. Why? Because success has a price tag that doesn't show up on a spreadsheet. Emotional cost. You pay it with belief when no one believes in you. You pay it with focus when every distraction screams louder. You pay it with discipline, with routine, with total alignment. In a world that worships ease, success is not built by the loud. It's built by the consistent, not by the gifted, but by the mentally trained. Not by those who hope, but by those who build in silence until the work itself becomes louder than the doubt. You must understand that there's a time in every champion's life where they're doing the work, doing it right, doing it with everything they've got. And no one cares. No one's noticing. No one's encouraging. And that's when the average person folds. But the few, the rare few who walk through that desert with nothing but faith in their chest, they're the ones who come out transformed. They're the ones the world calls an overnight success, as if the years of silent discipline didn't happen. But they did. You just didn't see them, because the seed of success doesn't grow under the spotlight. It grows underground, in darkness, in pressure, in isolation, and only the committed keep watering that seed long enough for it to break the surface. That's why I tell people, if you need applause, you're not ready. If you need motivation to stay consistent, you're not ready. If you need external proof to believe your internal vision, you're not ready. You have to be willing to look like a fool, to show up with no audience, to grind with no spotlight, to act like it's already done, before it's even started to work. That's the game. That's the price. And most don't want to pay it. But here's the paradox: the moment you stop needing to be seen, that's when you become worth seeing. When you detach from external validation, you unlock internal power. When you work in silence, you gain precision. You build character. You learn to hear your own thoughts without the crowd. And that kind of man, that kind of woman, is dangerous. Because they're not working to impress. They're working to become. You want to change your life? Then get comfortable in the quiet. Turn the volume down on the world, and turn the volume up on your work. Because if you can't perform in silence, you'll collapse under pressure. And if you won't commit when no one believes in you, you're not ready to carry the weight when they finally do. Success doesn't care about your feelings. It doesn't care about your dreams. It doesn't care about your potential. It only responds to relentless, quiet, disciplined execution, repeated until the outcome has no choice but to appear. So don't chase recognition. Chase responsibility. Chase mastery. Chase the person you become when no one's watching. Because the real test of greatness isn't what you do when they cheer. It's what you keep doing when they don't. Let that be your standard. Let that be the voice in your mind when it gets hard. I build in silence, because I know what I'm building is louder than words. There's a moment in every person's life when they finally realize no one is coming to save them. Not their parents, not their friends, Not their mentors, teachers, or followers. Not luck, not timing, not the economy, just them. And it's not a moment of despair. It's a moment of power. A moment when everything gets quiet, not outside, but inside. When the illusions fall away and what's left is this unfiltered truth. You are the only one who can build this. It's easy to get caught in the trap of waiting. Waiting for the right environment, the right motivation, the right people to support you, the right season. But that's not how greatness is made. You don't get to the top by waiting. You get there by deciding. You want to know why most people never break through? Why they start strong, end up right back where they began? It's because they keep outsourcing responsibility. They keep handing off their destiny to external conditions. They think their environment has to change before they do. They think their boss, their partner, their past, that all of it needs to shift before they can become who they're meant to be. But that's not how transformation works. That's not how champions are made. Champions don't wait for rescue. They lead their own rescue mission. They recognize that personal responsibility is the most powerful mindset on earth because it doesn't leave room for blame. It doesn't leave room for waiting. It forces you to look in the mirror and say, if it's going to happen, it's going to be me. That's not pressure. That's freedom. Because the moment you stop blaming, you start building. The moment you stop waiting, you start moving. The moment you stop looking outside for the answer, you finally begin listening to the only voice that matters, the one inside you. And I mean the real one, not the one soaked in doubt and borrowed opinions. I'm talking about the voice buried beneath years of noise and fear and what ifs. The voice that remembers who you were before the world told you to be smaller. That voice is waiting for you to rise, but it won't shout. It whispers, it waits, and it only grows louder when you start acting like you believe it. See, every great achievement in history began with one person who made a decision when no one else would. They didn't have clarity. They didn't have guarantees. What they had was a standard. They looked around and said, this may be my reality, but it is not my identity. They stopped negotiating with their potential. They stopped waiting for someone to push them. They took ownership of everything, even the pain, even the problems. And that's what made them powerful. When you own the problem, you own the power to change it. You think Edison was waiting for someone to hand him a light bulb blueprint. He failed over 10,000 times. He didn't wait. He built. You think Lincoln waited to feel accepted before deciding to lead a broken nation. He acted in defiance of fear, because principle demanded it. They didn't succeed because they had help. They succeeded because they refused to wait for help. And so must you. That's not to say you won't need people. Of course you will. But if you make progress dependent on people, you'll be stuck forever. Because people are unpredictable. Some will cheer for you. Some will disappear. And some will secretly hope you fail. So what? You don't need a cheering section. You need conviction. You need to build a mind that doesn't require backup. You need to become the kind of person who pushes forward without applause, without encouragement, without confirmation. Because the vision is enough. That's the turning point. When your desire to rise becomes more powerful than your fear of doing it alone. When your why becomes louder than your wounds. When your need for progress outweighs your addiction to comfort. You've got to stop negotiating with your old self. That version of you, the one that hesitates, that blames, that waits for someone to come fix it, has to die. Because the version of you that creates greatness, that version takes full, brutal, beautiful responsibility. No more stories, no more waiting, no more rescue fantasy. The hero of your story isn't someone you're hoping shows up. It's you. It's always been you. And the sooner you accept that, the sooner your real life begins. Everyone talks about growth. They say they want to evolve, level up, become someone new. But what most people never realize is this growth isn't additive. It's subtractive. You don't become great by piling on more hacks, more books, more goals. You become great by letting go, by killing the parts of you that are in the way. Growth, real growth, is violent. It's disruptive. It's a psychological war between who you've been and who you're trying to become. And here's the part most won't tell you. You can't become a new person and still protect the old one. You can't evolve and still cling to your excuses. You can't be reborn while holding on to your comfort zone. Something has to die. That's the uncomfortable truth of transformation. There's no peaceful evolution. There is a version of you. Right now. That is comfortable, reactive, doubtful, overly cautious, addicted to ease and validation, and that version must go. You must choose to confront it, to strip away the masks, the habits, the ego-built narratives that make you feel safe, but are quietly keeping you small. This is why most people stay stuck, because deep down, they don't want to kill the old self. They want to bring it with them. They want to drag that weak, frightened identity into a new chapter and hope success will accommodate it. But it won't. The door to the next level is only wide enough for one version of you, and the one you are now can't fit through. That's the principle Napoleon Hill hinted at every time he spoke of burning desire, of definite purpose, of decision. He wasn't talking about casual change. He was talking about metamorphosis, about becoming so committed to your vision that you are willing to disassemble who you've been, belief by belief, habit by habit, and build someone new. It's identity work, and it's not glamorous. It's hard, it's raw, it's uncomfortable, because it means telling the truth. It means saying, I'm not who I thought I was. It means asking, why do I keep sabotaging myself? What am I protecting by staying the same? Who do I become if I let go of who I've been? That kind of honesty is terrifying, but it's also the only thing that frees you, because the person you want to be, the one who's disciplined, focused, driven, grounded, resilient, already exists. They are waiting beneath layers of lies, trauma, laziness, and fear. You don't need to find them. You need to remove what's hiding them. That's the real work. And it's not a single decision. It's a daily one. Every time you choose action over comfort, you kill the old self. Every time you choose discipline over distraction, belief over doubt, movement over delay, you chip away at the weaker identity that no longer serves you. And this process is not polite. It will make you uncomfortable. It will alienate people. It will require you to say no more than you say yes. It will require you to stop being available to people who only knew the past version of you. They won't like that, but it's not about them. It's about alignment. Because here's the reality: you cannot build a new life with the habits of your old one. You cannot lead with a follower's mind. You cannot dominate the outer world until you dominate the inner one. And domination doesn't come from pretending. It comes from discipline, from execution, from self-reflection that becomes self-correction. And from that, identity is born. A new identity, one that doesn't flinch under pressure, one that doesn't justify weakness, one that doesn't confuse temporary comfort with long-term purpose. That identity is your greatest weapon, because once you've built it, no one can take it. Not failure, not rejection, not loss. You may get knocked down, but you won't fall apart, because you've already buried the version of you that would quit. That version is gone. So stop romanticizing who you've been. Start designing who you must become. Burn the bridges, break the patterns, refuse to carry forward any mindset that won't survive the next level. Because success doesn't come when you add more. It comes when you finally subtract what's been in the way. It comes the moment you're willing to say, the old me is done. I'm not waiting for transformation. I'm becoming it. And from that moment forward, nothing, not time, fear, not failure, will ever have power over you again. There's something people rarely say out loud, because it's not marketable, it's not sexy, and it certainly doesn't sell on social media. Discipline hurts more than failure. That's the truth. But no one wants to admit it, because it exposes the illusion we've been solding that success feels good, that greatness is supposed to be energizing, that being disciplined is about finding the right flow, or hack, that makes everything easy. But real discipline, the kind that builds empires, it's painful. It's painful because it requires the death of impulse, and human beings are addicted to impulse. We crave what feels good now. We want the sugar of comfort, the dopamine of distraction, the approval of others. We want shortcuts, rewards, pleasure, anything but the long, lonely path of doing what must be done. Discipline isn't natural. It's chosen. It's built like a muscle, through repetition, resistance, and friction. And like any real growth, it's uncomfortable, because it doesn't just challenge your schedule, it challenges your character. It demands that you act in alignment with your future, not your feelings. It asks you to get up when your body wants to sleep, to create when your mind says rest, to persist when every voice in your head whispers, why bother? Most people don't lack ambition. They lack discipline. They have the vision. They have the desire. What they don't have is the internal governance to keep moving without reward. And this is where the battle is lost. Not in a moment, but over time. Because failure doesn't show up like a car crash. It shows up in quiet decisions, sleeping in when you promised yourself you wouldn't, scrolling when you said you'd be studying, talking about your goals instead of working on them, making excuses sound like strategy. Every time you choose ease over effort, you reinforce the identity of someone who breaks their own word. And the more often you break it, the more you believe it can be broken. Eventually, you lose trust in yourself. And here's the paradox most people never understand: discipline hurts more in the beginning, but failure hurts forever. Discipline cuts you up front. It bleeds your energy, your time, your comfort. But failure, it robs your soul quietly. It steals from your future. It leaves you with a life half lived, haunted by what you could have been if you've been willing to endure discomfort long enough to become extraordinary. We live in a culture addicted to feelings. Do what feels good. Follow your gut. Take it easy. Give yourself a break. But champions don't ask, how do I feel? They ask, what needs to be done? They're not driven by moods. They're driven by mission. That's the psychological edge. Because discipline, at its highest level, is not about self-denial. It's about identity enforcement. Every disciplined action is a vote for the person you're becoming. Every sacrifice reinforces the belief that you are a person of power, precision, and control. And here's what's wild: the longer you stay in it, the less it hurts. Because your nervous system adapts. Your mind recalibrates. What once felt painful becomes neutral. What once was unbearable becomes standard. Discipline rewires your thresholds. It redefines what you're capable of. And once your mind accepts that you no longer negotiate with excuses, it stops offering them. Eventually, you stop trying to avoid discomfort and start craving the clarity it brings. That's the switch. You stop fearing pain and start trusting it. Because you understand that pain is the compass. That the sharpest growth comes from the most uncomfortable choices. That every time you do what's hard, not because you like it, but because you decided, you build something inside of you that can't be taken away. And that something is strength. Not physical strength. Not the kind that fades with time, but discipline-born identity. The inner foundation that says, I do the work, no matter what. I follow through, even when no one sees it. I show up. Not because it feels good, but because it is good. That's the architecture of greatness. And you don't build it in a weekend. You build it in obscurity through thousands of small, invisible choices. Made in silence, made in sacrifice, made in service of the highest version of you. So yes, discipline will hurt. But let it hurt. Let it shape you. Let it break the parts of you that can't carry your destiny. Because the pain of discipline is constructive. It's the fire that forges steel. It's the cost of walking into your future. Clean, focused, prepared. And in the end, when others are asking what happened, you'll know, I was willing to bleed a little each day. So I'd never die with regret. Everybody wants something. They want the wealth, the recognition, the success, the influence. They write it in journals. They put it on vision boards. They say it out loud like an affirmation will rearrange the universe for them. But here's the truth: you don't get what you want. You get what you're aligned with. That's not just philosophy. That's law. Life doesn't hand you what you dream about. It hands you what you prepare for. It hands you what you've made space for. What your habits allow, what your mind is conditioned to handle. It hands you what you're built to carry. And that's the hard truth most people avoid. Wanting something doesn't move you forward. Alignment does. Alignment means your thoughts, your behaviors, your environment, and your identity all point in the same direction. It means your actions aren't fighting your desires. It means your schedule matches your goals. It means your standards match your self-respect. But most people are in conflict with themselves. They say they want clarity, but they live in chaos. They say they want discipline, but they keep choosing distractions. They say they want abundance, but they operate from fear, from scarcity, from the mentality of, I hope I don't lose. That's not alignment. That's fragmentation. And when you're fragmented, you send mixed signals to the world. You say one thing, but you live another. And the universe responds to what you consistently demonstrate. Know what you occasionally declare. It doesn't matter what you claim to want. What matters is whether or not you are prepared to receive it, because every goal comes with a psychological cost. And if you haven't paid it in advance through mindset, through action, through commitment, then even if you get what you want, you'll find a way to lose it. That's why people sabotage. That's why lottery winners go broke. That's why some people get opportunities they prayed for and then choke. They weren't aligned. They weren't ready. And readiness is not about having the perfect plan. It's about having the identity to sustain the outcome. You don't attract what you chase. You attract what you embody. And embodiment means becoming the kind of person who already lives at that level. It means living today as if the results are already unfolding. Not because you're delusional, but because you understand that action is the only proof of belief. You can't just want success. You have to live like someone who deserves it. If you want to be a leader, start leading, even if no one's following. If you want to be wealthy, start managing your current money with precision. If you want to be respected, start behaving in ways that command it, with or without an audience. That's alignment. It's internal congruence. And when everything inside of you lines up, you become magnetic. You stop chasing and start attracting, not because it's magic, but because you've eliminated resistance, because your energy is no longer scattered, because there's no longer a gap between who you say you are and how you actually live. The most dangerous people in the world are the ones whose behavior matches their vision. You can feel them when they walk in a room. There's no noise, no show, no performance, just clarity, just power, because they're not trying to convince anyone. They've already convinced themselves. And that self-certainty, that's alignment in its purest form. It's not arrogance. It's not ego. It's the outcome of living in harmony with your highest intention. Now ask yourself, are you aligned with what you say you want? Not, do you wish for it? Not, do you hope one day? But, do your days match your destination? If someone watched your habits for a month straight, would they be able to guess what your goals are? Would they see consistency, clarity, focus, intention, or would they see excuses disguised as business? Because here's what most won't admitting: you can't cheat alignment. You can't fake preparation. You can't skip identity work and expect to hold the weight of success. What you get in life will never exceed the level of your alignment. And if by chance it does, you'll sabotage it until your reality matches your self-image again. So if you truly want something, stop looking at the outcome and start looking at yourself. Upgrade the way you think. Refine the way you speak. Tighten the way you move. Raise the standard of who allow into your energy. Because when you align with what you want, the work becomes natural. The distractions lose their flavor, and the world stops feeling like it's working against you, because you've finally stopped working against yourself. That's the switch. It's not about more effort. It's about deeper alignment. Because in the end, you don't get what you want. You get what you are. We live in a world that wants to reward intention. We've been conditioned to think that effort should be enough, that trying matters, that showing up should be applauded, even if it leads to nothing. And while that may work in classrooms or comfort zones out here, in the world of achievement, wealth, growth, and real success, it's not enough. The world doesn't pay you for trying. It pays you for results. That's not harsh. That's honest. This is the reality champions live by, and it's why they rise. While others stall, effort is the minimum. Results are the difference. See, effort is internal. It's personal. It's how you feel about hard you're working. But the world isn't measuring how tired you are. It's measuring what you produced. This is where so many talented, driven, well-meaning people lose the game, because they confuse effort with execution. They think just because they stayed up late, read another book, listened to another podcast, filled out another planner, that something changed. But nothing changes unless the results do. Results are external proof that your effort is intelligent, intentional, and directed. Effort without outcome is just activity. And activity without clarity is self-sabotage in disguise. Look around. The most successful people don't always work the longest hours. They work the right hours with ruthless focus. They don't confuse business for progress. They've learned the art of doing what moves the needle. And that's the difference. It's not about how much you do. It's about how much of what you do matters. You can be exhausted and still stagnant. You can be disciplined and still undirected. Effort, by itself, doesn't guarantee anything. Think of a farmer planting seeds in a desert and watering them every day with everything he's got. That's effort. That's passion. That's sweat. But if he doesn't choose the right soil, if he doesn't plant in season, if he doesn't understand the laws of growth, no fruit will ever come from his work, because nature doesn't reward sweat. It rewards alignment with principle, and neither does life. This is why understanding the difference between effort and effectiveness is non-negotiable. You can't afford to just try hard. You have to think clearly. You have to act wisely. You have to measure what matters. Because success doesn't come to the person who works the most. It comes to the person who works with the most clarity. The marketplace, your relationships, your body, your spirit, they all respond to outcomes, not intentions. You can intend to be healthy, but if your actions don't change, the result is the same. You can intend to grow your income, but if you're still spending like a consumer instead of investing like a builder, the result is the same. You can intend to become a new person, but if your habits are identical to who you were 6 months ago, the result is the same. No matter how noble your heart is, no matter how passionate your desire, without a result, the world keeps moving without you. That's not personal. That's principle. And if you want to win, you need to start living by outcome intelligence. Ask yourself, consistently, is what I'm doing producing what I say I want? Am I tracking the right things? Am I judging my progress by output, not effort? Is there tangible fruit from my labor? Or am I hiding in the comfort of movement that feels good but changes nothing? Because your life will change the day you stop celebrating how hard it was and start celebrating how effective it became. The people who build legacies, who rise above the noise, who create generational wealth, influence, and peace, they have one thing in common: they are relentlessly committed to results. They track them. They adjust for them. They aren't emotionally attached to old methods. They adapt when something doesn't work. They aren't loyal to effort. They're loyal to evolution. And if you want to join them, if you want to transcend the average life, you have to become obsessed, not with looking busy, but with becoming effective. Because out here in the real world, results are the language of truth. They expose where you're aligned. They reveal where you're wasting time. They demand precision, humility, and resilience. And the moment you take radical ownership of your outcomes, even the disappointing ones, you take radical control of your future. Because you can't improve what you don't own. You can't refine what you won't measure. But once you do, once you say, these results are mine, and I will make them better, you unlock a level of power that no excuse, no failure, no external voice can touch. So stop worshiping effort. Stop bragging about how hard it is. Start asking, is it working? And if not, change, elevate. Because the world will never pay you for trying. It will only pay you for what you've built. Results are your resume, not your potential, not your passion, not your pain. That's the truth most people never face. But champions, they face it every single day. At first, they'll cheer for you. They'll say you're inspiring. They'll share your posts. They'll call you ambitious, driven, different. But then something shifts. You start to separate. You start to rise. You stop needing their approval. You stop playing by the rules they never questioned. Your results begin to speak louder than their opinions. And that, right there, is when the same people who clapped for your potential will begin to resent your reality. Because the truth is, you'll be hated for the same success they once praised you for. And if you're not ready for that, if you're still attached to being liked, accepted, understood, your own progress will destroy you. This is one of the great psychological battles every champion faces: the loneliness of elevation. Not because you wanted to leave anyone behind, but because growth requires separation. It's not that you think you're better. It's not ego. It's evolution. When you choose to break your limits, when you choose to think bigger, live bolder, and operate at a higher frequency, it threatens those who have built their identity around staying the same. And rather than reflect, rather than rise, most people will choose the easier option on resentment. It's safer to criticize you than confront their own inaction. Because if you succeed, without shortcuts, without compromise, then their excuses no longer hold up. Your existence becomes evidence that they could be moored if they chose to be. And that's a mirror some people can't look into. So instead of changing, they'll try to change how they see you. They'll say you're obsessed, that you've changed, that you're too intense, too focused, too ambitious. And they'll be right. Because you have changed. You're no longer addicted to comfort. You no longer need external validation. You no longer fear solitude, silence, or separation. You've become someone who can't be pulled down by opinions. Because you've built yourself on truth, not popularity. That's the cost of growth most people aren't warned about. Not everyone can go with you. Not everyone should. Some people are only meant to applaud your beginning. They weren't built for your becoming. But you must never let their discomfort convince you to shrink. Never confuse familiarity with loyalty. Never stay small to make someone else feel safe. Because the minute you do that, you're no longer growing. You're performing. And greatness doesn't live in performance. It lives in authenticity. Authenticity will cost you crowds, but it will attract clarity. It will strip away the shallow, but it will magnetize the aligned. The higher you go, the quieter it gets. Not because you're alone, but because you're finally surrounded by people who don't need to be loud to be real. That's the paradox of success. It gives you everything, but it also demands everything. It will put you in rooms where you don't belong, and then require you to earn the right to stay. It will make you confront your own need to be liked, to be approved, to be validated. And it will destroy that part of you if you let it. And you must let it, because the stronger you get, the more you'll be tested. Not just by failure, but by success. Can you still love yourself when others stop loving your progress? Can you hold the vision when no one claps anymore? Can you walk away from the familiar to protect your future? The price of purpose is misunderstanding. The price of alignment is isolation. The price of success, real success, is peace that was earned in silence, after you've been torn apart by people who said they were with you. But here's what they don't know. Every time they doubt you, every time they whisper behind your back, every time they try to box you into the version of you they were comfortable with, they're feeding your fire. Because the more resistance you face, the more proof you have that you're no longer ordinary. And that's the whole point. You weren't born to blend in. You weren't designed to be digestible. You weren't made to be understood by everyone. Only by those who are brave enough to rise with you. So let them talk. Let them doubt. Let them leave. You didn't come this far to be accepted. You came this far to become. And becoming isn't polite. It isn't predictable. It isn't always praised. But it's always worth it. Because when you stop living for their applause, you finally start hearing your own voice. And that voice, that's your compass. That's your power. So keep going. They may hate the success they once praised, but your purpose was never about their approval anyway. It was about your transformation. You're going to hurt. Not because you're doing something wrong, but because you're finally doing something different. See, we've been taught to fear pain. We treat it like a red flag, a warning sign, a cue to pull back, slow down, escape. But that mindset is the reason most people stay stuck, because they don't understand the truth. Pain is your proof that you're not average anymore. Comfort never complains. Routine never resists. But growth, real growth, it screams. It stretches. It hurts. Pain is the body's signal that you're exceeding your old limits. Pain is the mind's signal that it's being rewired. Pain is the soul's way of saying, we are stepping into something we've never done before. And that's exactly why we must keep going. You can't build muscle without tearing the fibers. You can't build discipline without starving distraction. You can't build a new identity without dismantling the old one, piece by painful piece. And yes, it hurts. It's supposed to, because greatness doesn't grow in ease. It grows in resistance. Every champion, every legend, every person who's built anything remarkable has gone through seasons of internal agony. Not because they were weak, but because they were breaking through. But most people misread that pain. They think it means turn back. They think pain is punishment. They say things like, this must not be for me. Maybe I'm not cut out for this. Why is this so hard? What they don't see is that the pain is the passage. It's the proof that you're on the edge of transformation. It's the pressure that creates depth. It's the friction that makes fire. Think about a rocket leaving Earth's atmosphere. The heat is violent, the resistance is brutal, but once it breaks through, there's silence, stillness, space. That's what pain does. It brings you to the border between who you were and who you're meant to be. And if you can withstand it, if you can keep moving even when every cell in your body screams to stop, you earn access to a life most people will never touch. Because they backed off too early. They looked at discomfort and called it danger. They never learned how to suffer with purpose. And that's the difference. The elite don't run from pain. They interpret it. They study, they listen to it. Because pain tells the truth. Pain says, here's where you're soft. Here's where you've been hiding. Here's the wound you've been covering with business and fake confidence. It doesn't speak in words. It speaks in resistance, in fatigue, in fear, in doubt that echoes through your bones. And if you can lean into it, without flinching, without numbing, without reaching for something to distract you, you'll find something extraordinary, your future self. Because pain isn't the enemy, it's the invitation to grow, to adapt, to sharpen, to rise. Look at every person who's done something exceptional, not in a single moment, but over a lifetime. They are not void of pain. They're defined by it. They are built from it. They've suffered consciously, deliberately, with the kind of intensity that would break most people. And they came out stronger. They didn't avoid it. They absorbed it. They let it refine them. And eventually it became fuel. Because once you learn how to carry pain, it stops controlling you. And that right there, is where real power begins. Because if you're no longer afraid of pain, you're no longer controllable. Not by failure, not by people, not even by your past self. You become untouchable. Not because you're invincible, but because you're willing to feel everything and still move forward. And that's what separates you from the average. Because average avoids. Average escapes. Average finds reasons to retreat, then spends years wondering why nothing changes. But you understand the contract. If you want to live a life beyond limits, you have to stop expecting it to feel good. At least not all the time. At least not when it matters most. And here's the final truthing: pain doesn't mean you're losing. Pain means you're leveling up. So stop looking for an easier way. Start asking for a stronger mind, a deeper focus, a more powerful reason to endure. Because every time you choose to keep going in the presence of pain, you're teaching yourself something unshakable. I do not need it to be easy. I just need it to be worth it. And if you can hold on to that, if you can welcome the fire without begging for escape, you will become the one thing this world cannot break. Someone who's suffered with purpose and turned it into power. There's a battlefield most people never talk about. You can't see it. It doesn't make noise. And yet, it's the most dangerous war you'll ever face. It's the war for your mind. Because your mind is the command center of your life. It's where every decision is made, every belief is formed, every identity is born. And if you don't learn how to master it, someone else will. That's not a metaphor. That's reality. If you don't program your mind intentionally, it will be programmed externally. By culture, by media, by fear, by people who profit from your confusion. Your mind is a tool, a weapon, a machine. But if left unattended, it becomes a liability. This is the principle most ignoring. If you don't control your mind, it will be used against you. And not in some dramatic, obvious way. No, the attack is subtle. It's slow. It happens in the way you talk to yourself, the way you hesitate when opportunity knocks, the way you shrink when your soul is begging you to stretch. It happens in the little compromises, the doubts that sound like logic, the distractions that feel like relief, the comparison that sneaks in like a whisper and suddenly becomes a cage. That's not just you being tired or lazy. That's your mind being hijacked by fear, by habit, by a mental operating system you never installed, but still follow. Most people never question the thoughts they obey. They wake up and assume the inner dialogue is theirs. They hear, "You're not ready," and they believe it. They feel, "This is too hard," and they stop. They think, "Maybe later," and they wait. But who said that voice is you? Just because it's in your head doesn't mean it's from your highest self. This is why mental control is the foundation of all greatness. Because your mind is not neutral. It either works for you or against you. The most successful people in history all understood this. Napoleon Hill didn't just teach desire or belief. He taught dominion over the mind. He wrote that thoughts are things. But he also warned, thoughts become dangerous when they are undisciplined. Because your mind is fertile ground. It will grow whatever you plant, whether it's weeds or wisdom. And if you don't plant intentionally, it will absorb the dominant environment. That means doubt. That means fear. That means confusion dressed up as logic. You cannot outsource this battle. You cannot hand your mind to the algorithm, the news cycle, or the crowd, and expect clarity. You cannot consume chaos and produce peace. You cannot fill your head with noise and expect to hear your own purpose. You have to reclaim the throne. You have to become mentally sovereign. That means learning to observe your thoughts instead of obeying them. It means challenging the assumptions you've inherited. It means replacing reaction with reflection, and impulse with intention. This is not easy. This is not comfortable. Because your mind will resist. It will fight you to protect the patterns it's already addicted to. It's efficient that way. The brain doesn't care if your thoughts are true. It only cares if they're familiar. And if you've rehearsed limitation long enough, your brain will fight to protect it, even if it's killing your future. That's why discipline alone is not enough. You need mental ownership. You need to become the one who decides what stays and what gets rejected. Not every thought deserves your attention. Not every emotion deserves your reaction. You have to curate your mind like your life depends on it, because it does. Everything you build, everything you break, every relationship, every opportunity. It all rises and falls based on the patterns inside your head. And here's the dangerous part. If you don't master your mind, someone will. And they'll use it to sell you things you don't need, to make you fear things that don't matter, to distract you from what does, to keep you uncertain, uncentered, and under control. This is how people become prisoners in their own thoughts. Not because they lack potential, but because they never took authority over the one thing they always had access to, their own perception. But once you do, once you reclaim it, everything changes. You become the observer. You become the filter. You become the gatekeeper of your focus. And suddenly, life becomes clearer. Not easier, but clearer. Because you're no longer at war with yourself. You're no longer a puppet pulled by the strings of doubt and distraction. You become deliberate, intentional, dangerous, not in violence, but in vision. Because a person who controls their mind can't be manipulated. They can't be talked out of their dream. They can't be baited by drama, or derailed by failure, or broken by opinion. They move from the inside out, not the outside in. And that's where real freedom lies. So if you remember nothing else, remember this: until you control your mind, you are not free. No matter how successful you look, you keep searching for something. Another book, another mentor, another breakthrough, another sign from the world that you're finally enough. But what if I told you it's already here? What if everything you're looking for is already in you? See, we've been conditioned to believe that greatness is something you acquire. That confidence must be learned. That purpose must be found. That power must be earned. But that's the lie. The truth, the liberating, unshakable truth, is this: you were born with everything you need. Not someday, not after more experience, not once you get the right job or the right education or the perfect timing. Right now, as you are, fully equipped. That potential you feel in your gut, that pull you can't explain, that's not fantasy. That's evidence. Evidence that within you, right now, lives the blueprint for something extraordinary. But the world doesn't teach you to trust that. It teaches you to defer, to wait, to ask for permission, to compare, to question, to outsource your confidence to other people's opinions. From the moment you're old enough to dream, someone starts teaching you to doubt. That voice wasn't yours. It was given to you, and now you carry it, like armor you never asked for. But armor gets heavy, and eventually, if you want to move, if you want to rise, you have to take it off. You have to strip away every limiting belief that was handed to you by someone who stopped believing in themselves. You have to unlearn the lie that says, you need something more before you begin. No, you don't. You don't need more motivation. You need more conviction. You don't need more time. You need more decision. You don't need to wait for a sign. You are the sign. You're not missing anything. You already have the mind. But you must train it. You already have the heart. But you must open it. You already have the voice. But you must use it. This is what separates champions from the crowd. They stop waiting to feel ready. They stop asking for proof. They look inward and say, if I was born with the desire, then I was born with the capacity. A desire is a divine clue. You don't want what you can't grow into. You don't dream what you're not meant to build. You don't ache for something unless it's already part of your design. That voice inside you, the one that whispers at night, the one that refuses to let you settle, that voice isn't wrong. It's been trying to wake you up, to remind you that the greatness you admire in others isn't exclusive. It's available. It's coded into your spirit. But only if you're willing to claim it. And claiming it doesn't mean arrogance. It means ownership. It means looking in the mirror, not for flaws, not for weakness, not for evidence of failure, but for signs of life, of fire, of possibility. It means knowing this, you came into this world with something no one else has. Your vision, your voice, your story, your path. And the moment you decide to stop chasing the world and start activating what's already within you, the entire game changes. Because now, you're not playing from insecurity. You're playing from truth. You're no longer trying to become something. You're revealing what was always there. You're not reaching. You're remembering. And that shift, that internal recalibration, it's everything. Because a person who knows they are already enough is unstoppable. Not because they have no fear, but because they don't let fear decide who they are. So I'll say it one more time, you were born with everything you need. Not just the idea, not just the hope. The tools, the strength, the calling. It was never about adding more. It was always about activating what's been dormant. So stop hiding. Stop doubting. You are not broken. You are becoming, and now it's time to rise. Not because the world is ready, but because you are.